I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Monday, March the 8th, brought to you in part by Joplin Regional Stockyards. Got a big run coming up here on the regular feeder cattle sale for Monday, expecting around 12,000 head of cattle. Goes to show you how much we were backed up due to the slowdown during the cold snap, the winter storms that came through about 3 weeks ago. But back going full time now. Also, don't forget, Joplin is going to be having one of their prime time video sales this Thursday at 1 o'clock p.m. It'll just be there from the barn facility, but you can get on to Primetime Livestock or get on to dvauction.com, view and bid that video auction right there at 1 o'clock on Thursday. We've got industry issues, and there seems to be a lot of them. And not only are we talking about the issues, we're talking about the different views all within our small industry. And that's one of the reasons we keep getting run over all the time, is because we have so many differing views just within our small little clique. And not really so much with your grassroots people, but more with your associations. And they've got some power, they've got their lobbyists, they've got their angles, they've got their legal actions, they've got different things that they do to try to get their view pushed. But tell you what, it's getting kind of confusing. But the biggest issue that's facing the industry right now is our lack of fed cattle trade negotiated. And you've seen over the last several weeks how small our volume has been with direct to fed cattle trade on a negotiated basis. We've been stuck on 114 for over a month now, and we're in the time of year and in the period that we should have been gaining several dollars in our fat cattle market, and we were not able to do that because the packers just they pretty much have all their needs filled. And so all they have to do is fill in around the edges there, and then they've got many unfair trade practices like strong arm tactics that they use. They're very threatening. If a feedlot or somebody that sells cattle to them puts out a Facebook post or a tweet or something like that they don't agree with, they will inform you that you need to take that down. It's kind of like dealing with the mafia is what it is. But I always talk with different people around the industry on what the issues are. But had a guy send me a text there over the weekend, which I thought hammered it home pretty good. Not that we haven't said it before, but the packers are gouging the consumers. They're robbing from the feeder, and they're using their record profits to invest in fake meat. We're looking at this Cattle Market Transparency Act that I've talked to you guys about, that got introduced into the Senate early this past week. We found that it's got a good chance to get passed through. We don't have Pat Roberts heading up your Senate Ag Committee and taking all of his direction from Kansas Livestock Association anymore. We've got some people in there that will listen. Yes, it is democratically run. Well, everything's run by the Democrats right now because we got a Democratic administration. But one of the things that Democrats don't mind doing is regulating business, and that's what this would be doing, and that's what a lot of your opponents of the Cattle Market Transparency Act are saying is, we don't want the government interfering in here. We're going broke little by little, and I'm saying that as an entire industry. We're going broke. We're losing equity every day, and I continue to tell you guys, getting something passed like the Cattle Market Transparency Act isn't necessarily for your feeders. Yeah, we might get a bigger price for your finished fat cattle, but it's probably, depending on what their risk management is, it may not be a lot better for a lot of your cattle feeders. And I've told you guys before, most of your big corporate feeders especially, they don't care what the fat cattle price is. All they care about is the basis. But the problem is, your backgrounders, your cow-calf people, the people that are supplying these feeder cattle to them, they got to have real money. They have to have real money to buy equipment with, to pay their bills, to keep their taxes paid, to upgrade, and things like that. But for the most part, if you're running a sizable cattle feeding operation, you've got that thing pretty well hedged up, and you know what you can operate on, and you're looking for a positive basis at different times, and you're going to continue to do that whether fat cattle are bringing $1.14 or if they're bringing $1.40. You know, likely you're going to be able to find a little bit bigger margin when the price is better. But it's mostly for the people that are supplying the feeder cattle is what this whole deal is about. So who would be against your Cattle Market Transparency Act? Well, in a release from Texas Cattle Feeders Association, it said that they strongly oppose it. They strongly oppose it. Now, and if that's not a sellout to your packers, you know, many years ago, whenever your National Cattlemen's Association partnered up and became your National Cattlemen's Beef Association, that's when it all started. And we've just kind of been losing, and your packers have gotten more influenced into their NCBA and things like that. And whenever your largest state affiliates like Texas Cattle Feeders Association, Kansas Livestock Association, Oklahoma Cattlemen's Association, you know, that is mostly a cow-calf state. Why they continue to refuse to support mandated minimum negotiated cash trade is beyond me, but they mostly take their direction from their big neighbors there from Kansas and Texas. But that doesn't mean that all your state affiliates are against this. Most of them are rabidly for it. You know, we've got a lot of big ones out there. Missouri Cattlemen's Association is for it. You go up into the Midwest, and you've got Iowa, you got Nebraska, you've got all those big feeding states up there that are for it. Now, they may be for the 5014, or they may be for Cattle Market Transparency Act, or they may be for whichever one we can get passed, and that's more like it. But they are for mandated minimum negotiated cash. And you get down in the southern plains, your New Mexico cattlemen's are for it. You go other places, Oregon is a big one. The Oregon cattlemen's, they're for it. So you can't just necessarily get on them. Now together they all make up NCBA, which is nationally run there. Now they are starting to feel the heat a little bit, because they did come out this week saying that they were open to discussion on this. They're feeling the heat, and likely they know that this has a good chance of getting passed, and they would love to be able to take some kind of credit for it if it does get passed, and then it helps the industry, which we know it will. They would like to get, but they're kind of riding the fence on that. They don't want to piss off the packers because they're so heavily influenced by them, but they know this thing has a good chance to get passed. Now your big dogs, the state guys like TCFA and them, they're still strongly opposing it. They cannot even act like that they would allow something like this to come through without a fight, because they are so heavily influenced by your packers, and their biggest members are in sweetheart deals with the packers, so they have to be like that. But if you guys have sent cattle out into the southern plains to be custom fed, you know that they get their money, you know, right there on the closeout. They don't have to worry about getting a check from you. That money comes right there out, and they're pretty rich. They got quite a bit of money there going in. Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association hasn't really advertised which side they're on. They usually take direction from their big brothers at TCFA, but then they saw that you know, this minimum cash trade would help their cow-calf producers, so then they got behind it, but maybe didn't in fact vote that way. So, you know, they're riding the fence a little bit too, but we would love to see them get in and support some kind of a mandated minimum negotiated cash trade. Where's RCAF on the deal? They are definitely for mandated minimum negotiated cash trade, but they're on the 5014 bill, and they think that it has a good chance to get passed. But I tell you what, from everything I've seen, this Cattle Market Transparency Act has a much better chance of getting passed than 5014. 5014 would cause every area to be at least 50% negotiated cash, and that's just not realistic, you know, in your Texas feedlot areas or your Kansas feedlot areas. It's just not realistic. It would totally upset the apple cart. Anything's going to upset the apple cart, but that would totally do it, and we'd have to start back over from scratch, and it'd be too much. But we're getting outside pressure on everything. You know, Bill Gates has come out in recent weeks and even wrote a book, and he is saying that all, you know, of the countries, you know, especially the richer countries around the world, should go totally to synthetic beef or fake beef and not be using and trying to put the cattle feeder out of business. Now, is it a coincidence that he recently became your largest farmland owner and he wants to make protein out of plant-based materials? I doubt it. I don't know how greedy he is or how powerful he is. I guess whenever you have as much money as he does, you pretty much think you can run the country and the world. Now, I think he probably is running the country to a certain degree from behind the scenes, but that was a little bold to come out and say, yeah, you guys need to quit flying so much and driving cars, but I'm going to continue to do it. You guys need to eat fake synthetic type meat substitutes, but I'm going to continue to eat this cheeseburger. And but it's just disgusting that the way that they're pushing things through. But personally, I support U.S. Cattlemen's Association's ideas, and they're the biggest ones in here pushing this Cattle Market Transparency Act. They have been working very, very closely with Deb Fisher's office and her aides and getting them on the right track. And in fact, we had to go in there and correct something right before they introduced that bill into the Senate floor, and was able to get that done. And that would have been a kind of all for naught deal if we hadn't got one little thing adjusted in there that people had read and read, but just continued to overlook. But you guys need to pick your battle, and you need to pick who you're going to get in with. And I think that the best thing to do is support your local grassroots organization rather than just your bigger ones, and try to get active. You know, I was talking to a guy last week. He said, you know, when the spotted owl come in and run us out of our timber industry out, and basically you know, caused a lot of us to go completely out because of the spotted owl deal. He said the reason that the environmentalists were able to do that is because people like my parents and his parents were heavily invested in that. They didn't go to the meetings, and the people that went to the meetings are the ones that made the rules and were there to vote on things. So, you know, you guys may need to get heavily involved in your local chapters, you know, whether it's a county association or a tri-county association or a region within your state or whatever. But you need to get active in that. You need to, you know, sit down, and I know it's a pain in the ass, but sit down, write an email. Like NCBA said, they're encouraging discussion about it. Well, if you're a member of theirs, send them your 2 bits. And like I said, you know, do it where you can document it and they can document it, and tell them how you feel. And I tell you what, that's the kind of things that get things pushed through. So I'll quit harping on that. We'll get into talking about some market information here. How about your board ending the week last week? April live cattle futures started off Monday down $1.02, Tuesday up 45 cents, Wednesday down 2 cents, Thursday down 85 cents, Friday back up 47 cents, with April live cattle ending the week at 119.02, down 98 cents for the week. June ended the week right at 118, down 42 cents for the week. Now, feeder cattle didn't fare nearly as well. March feeder cattle Monday down $1.47, Tuesday down 67. Wednesday was up 47 cents. Thursday down $1.90. Friday down a half a dollar. Some of your out months on Friday did jump up right there at the close, and it was very curious how all that was going on, but your nearbys were lower, especially your spot March was. But March feeder cattle ended the week at 134.60, down $4.07 for the week. Ouch. April ended the week at 139.02, down $3.55. But like I said, Friday's close was a little confusing there. I mean, you could just watch that thing click, 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 and your further out months were coming up. Your nearbys were fading there. May ended up on Friday up $2.50 just for the Friday session. That was a big deal. And then going on out further from there, late summer and fall feeder cattle contracts were quite a bit higher, well over $1 higher, and they've been pretty supportive. And still, if you look at those fall feeder contracts in your back months, they're in the mid 150s. Well, if you're going to have cattle turned out to be yearlings for that time of the year, you might want to go in there and dally up to one of those and hedge, protect yourself. Maybe you want to call your order buyer if they do basis trades and tell them you'd be interested in getting a bid from them to see how much back of one of those months you could sell your cattle for or something. But that looks pretty good out there, guys. We're sitting here barely clinging to the 130s on an 800-pound steer, and they're advertising them for late summer and early fall in the 150s. That looks pretty darn good. You look at your grains ended the week there. March corn ended the week at $5.62. Beans were $14.34 a bushel. That was up some, but not terrible there into the week there. Let's talk about your fat cattle trade. Through Thursday, negotiated sales in your 5-area feeding region only totaled 56,100 head. Did have a little bit more cleanup trade on Friday, but it's just been the same deal. Your market's been 114 for over a month. Sometimes your out trades that weren't at 114 were a little bit below. Sometimes they're a little bit above. This past week they were a little bit below. So your market's still 114, but your weighted averages are going to be under 114. Well, where the previous week they were over 114. But live prices of live steers and heifers 110 to 114, mostly 114. A little bit of 113 was showing up quite a bit there later part of the week, but your weighted average on live steers through Thursday was 113.76. On dressed steers and heifers 178 to 182, and that's basically steady too, but it's going to have to be steady to week at least, and your weighted average on dressed steers 179.79. Now on Friday we did have some trade. Iowa 4,300 head. They had 19,100 head for the week. 112 to 114, so basically the same, and heavy on the 114 live. But Nebraska 3,300 head on Friday. They had 18,300 head for the week. A little bit of 113, not too much live sales. Quite a bit of 180 there on a dress basis. Kansas didn't have any confirmed sales. They were just under 15,000 for the week through Thursday. Texas didn't have any sales on Friday. They were just under right around 8,700 head for the week. Colorado actually printed, due to confidentiality, which is one of the things that Cattle Market Transparency Act is going to try to break through as much as it can. Colorado hardly ever prints any information to show up for what happened, but they did print late in the week. Said they had 1,900 head on Friday and 4,700 head for the week. Oklahoma City and Joplin are going to have well over 12,000 cattle, feeder cattle, on Monday here. Colorado feedlots, you guys have been out there, there's sizable feedlots out there. For the whole week last week, they had sold 4,700 head negotiated cash. Ridiculous. But 113 to 114. Look at your box beef cutout values. Choice cuts, your weighted average for last week, 234.39. That was down $6 from the weighted average from the previous week. Selects 224.12. That was your weighted average on all your select sales last week. That was down 565 compared to the weighted average from the previous week. Just an average to moderate maybe movement of 556 loads. They don't really care how much they sell at that. They just want to keep. They are losing ground last week on your wholesale cuts, and I'm not sure why they let that happen. I'm not sure why they ever let that happen, because they set the prices on there. And they don't really care if they're moving that much product, because they've got a lot of it sold out front and they're going to need it. You can cryo back that stuff and sell it later. How about slaughter for last week? 665,000, down just 1,000 from the previous week, up 16,000 from the same week a year ago. So not too bad. Talk about feeder cattle market. You know, occasionally I like to give you guys some prices of what you can buy some shipped in cattle for, and not shipped in from way too far in the southeast, but how about just in central Texas there. But my buddy Ellison Carter, he gave me some quotes, said they were back to going again finally last week. Had several orders to fill and sent, you know, a lot of loads of cattle out there into the week or over the weekend, but said the runs were filled back up. Condition of the cattle, of course, they were pulled down a little bit because of the cold winter weather that they are not used to. Of course, it's the first time they'd ever seen it, but probably the first time their mothers had ever seen it too, to get really cold out. But he gave me some quotes on a lot of cattle that he shipped out that were purchased last week, and I'm just going to give you guys a rundown of what you could order some cattle for. These would be loads of cattle, delivered price to Texas Panhandle or Oklahoma, maybe up into Kansas. These are delivered prices. But how about some steers, some little 370-pound steers? Get a load of those delivered to your place for $186. And these would be good enough cattle, the #1 Central Texas cattle, and to be steers and bulls on those. Some, or you can order just all steers if that's the way you want them. A load weight 426, all steers at $173. Some 545-pound mixed steers and bulls at $141. Some 616-pound steers at $153.50. Load weight 633, all steers at $140. How about 719-pound steers mixed with a few bulls on them at $134. 786-pound steers at $110.25. They start getting heavy, they drop off pretty fast, guys. Then you can get some planer in. Those cattle will be good enough to pretty much go anywhere, mostly solid colored, and a lot of them be black. Then you could get some planer type cattle. These cattle will be crossed up pretty good. So 452 pounders at $144 sound awful cheap, and load weight 544 to 113. How about the heifer side? 317 pound heifers at $165 delivered. 450 pound heifers to your place at $142. Load weight 507 at $140. Some bigger ones weighing 544 also at $140. Some plainer kind of heifers weighing 568 delivered for $115.50. That sounds pretty cheap. 574 pound heifers at $138. Pretty fancy rig of heifers weighed 6 1/4 delivered at $131.50. And then a couple of weights of strictly yearling heifers. Some weighed 705 at $121. Another load weighed 841 at $108. You want to talk about the plainer end of heifers, and you can imagine what they would be, but they got 4 legs and a tail, and they got 4 stomachs. 543 pound heifers at $114, and a load of 627 pounders at $96 delivered. So that gives you an idea. If you're interested in something like that, you can call and visit with those guys. You can get contact information at EllisonCarterCattle.com. How about your feeder markets for last week, ending the week? Your real-time index on DV auction ended the week at 133.83. That was down $3.86 on an index price. That's down a bunch, guys. And it was just, we started getting more volume and more volume from the Southern Plains, and it pulled those down. Those index levels actually went up quite a bit during the cold snap, because where it gets really cold, where they have those premium long strings of one iron cattle up in Nebraska and in the Dakotas and places, they still had sales. So they pulled that index average up quite a bit. Well, it's just getting down there about where it needs to be, but it's going to fall more because we had a RTI at 133.83 based on 800-pound steers. You can't get that. 130 is a pretty good ticket on some 800-pound steers, especially smaller deals of them. You know, we've fallen off quite a bit, guys. We're going to have big runs this week, like I told you already. Joplin expecting 12,000. Oklahoma National Stockyards, and I talked to Greg Griffith there. He was auctioneering a bull sale that I was at over the weekend, expecting big runs there. They were saying from 12,500 to 30. Your cash feeders for last week, $3 to $5 lower in your sale barns. A lot of pressure from the lack of the fat cattle market to gain any ground, and just continuing to languish right there around 114. A lot of good demand for calves and stocker cattle, though. They sold unevenly steady to as much as $4 higher, with the biggest gains and instances more than that in the southeast, as a lot of guys are ordering cattle and buying them there. Bringing them in for grass, getting ready for that, because it's right around the corner, guys. I know we just had our biggest winter storm, but I mean, we're in March now. Let's talk about the individual quotes end of the week and over the weekend. Fort Scott, Kansas, 186 head of 854-pound feeder steers, 132.85, big time quote. How about Wahoo livestock sales? Wahoo, Nebraska, 81 head, 729-pound steers, 147.50. And they had a big sale at Burwell, Nebraska. Burwell had around 5,000 head for their big special on Friday. Look at this automated market report from Cattle Market Central. You can see how impressive these quotes are, and this is on all the cattle that went through. Look at your best tested weights of steers. 1,287 head of those 5-weight steers, average 551 at 184.17. Some individual quotes from Burwell. How about 178 head, 556-pound steers, bring 193. And then 198 head, 705-pound steers in Burwell, Nebraska at 157.50. But the biggest quote that I saw anywhere in your Zactran top quote for the day, Burwell, Nebraska, 243 head, 615-pound steers at 175. And that's your feeder flash for Monday.